What is a database? A database is just a collection of interrelated data stored together to serve multiple applications. Now, you could store data in CSV files or binary files that are completely valid. But the thing is, it's not that effective. If you want to store large data, or if you want multiple users to edit the same data, or searching, sorting, and all that stuff, it's much more easy if you use a real database instead of database also has a structure, so it's much more easier to store data and edit them. Anything that stores data is a database. Even Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, everything is a database. Now we won't be using Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets as a database. We will be using SQL database, and that we'll learn later. But for now, let's learn about the structure of a database. Now let's take an example of a school database. Each database contains multiple tables. So for school database, we can create a table for students. So now everything what is there in students table should contain only student information like student ID, name, email, age, parent's name, and all that stuff. Then we can create a separate table for teachers. And also we can create a separate table for classes. Now obviously real school databases are not that simple, but I hope you get an idea of tables and databases. Now let's learn about the structure of a table in database. Now obviously this whole thing is a table, and the name of the table is students for this table. We have fields or attributes. These are the columns. So we have student ID field, we have the name field, and we have the email field. And then we have records or tuple. You can call anything. I'll be calling a record. It's like the row of data, all the entries we have done. So like one student, we have 3 students. That means we have 3 records. Each field and each column have some properties, and all the elements in that field should follow that property. And they have multiple properties. One of them is their data type. Now for student ID, I will choose data type as an integer because we don't have any special characters or alphabets in our student ID. So choosing an integer would be wise. And for name, I'll go with string, and for email also I will go with string. All the elements in the field should follow this data type and also some other properties. Now we'll talk about only data types. So if I enter a new record with student ID as hello, then that would be invalid. Why is it invalid? Because student ID should contain only integers. But in this case, I added hello, and hello is not an integer, so it's invalid. Let's learn about CRUD. Now CRUD is an acronym for create, read, update, delete. It's like one of the fundamental parts when interacting with a database. Now anything you do will have one of these operations, whether it be a create, read, update, or delete. Let's take Instagram for example. Now Instagram's database may have multiple tables, like one table for users, like their name, their age, their tag, their password, and all that. And maybe another table for posts, like the photo they uploaded, the number of likes it has, and also how many comments and all that stuff. Now let's consider this example data, and this is the posts table of Instagram. Now obviously the table in Instagram database is not that simple. I just simplified it so that we can understand. We have post ID, account, photo, and likes. Now if someone uploads a picture, for example Microsoft uploads a picture. Now initially it will have 0 likes, but did you notice something? We added a new record to the database. We added something. That means we created something. So that's the create part of CRUD. That is create part of create, read, update, delete. Now if someone uploads something on Instagram, you all can see what has been uploaded. That means you're reading from Instagram's database. And over time, this picture will have more and more likes. Let's say from 0 it went to 30,000 likes. Now it didn't create any new thing in the database, but it modified the existing one. Now before the post by Microsoft had 0 likes, but now it has 30,000 likes. That means we updated something. We modified something. So that's the update part. And for some reason, if Microsoft deletes their post, then it's obviously, you guessed it, it's the delete part. So create, read, update, delete is really important for you to understand. Now every application will have these 4 operations. SQL. SQL, or Structured Query Language, is a programming language used to manage databases and perform various operations on the data in them. Now SQL itself is not a database, it's a language so that you can communicate with the database. There are set of queries. There are set of queries, like for creating something you have some command, and for deleting something you have a particular command. Doing everything with the database you can do it through SQL. And by the way, some people call it SQL. So if you hear people calling it SQL, then they refer to SQL. Let's say you have a database and you have your Python program. Now if you want to interact with the database, you need SQL. Now you will have all the logic. Maybe you'll take input from the user and all that in Python program, and then to insert that input to database you have to use SQL. So using SQL, you can take that input from the user and put it into the database. Now SQL is not only for Python, it's for every app. If you're building an iOS app, an Android app, or maybe even a website, all of them you could use the same database, and using through SQL you can interact with the database. Now there are many companies that provide SQL databases. The most popular ones are MySQL, PostgreSQL, and Microsoft SQL Server. Now in this course we'll be using MySQL because it's much popular and free, so we will be using that.